Ever feel like the world's spinning just a little bit faster every day? Like you turn around and bam, there's a new gadget, a new app, a new headline about some crazy AI breakthrough.
Oh, definitely. It's like trying to read a book while riding a roller coaster.
Exactly. And that feeling, that acceleration, it's not just in our heads. It's leading us towards something pretty wild, something called the singularity. And to help us unpack all of this, well, we've got our AI guru in the house.
Ready to dive in.
Perfect, because today's deep dive, we're taking on Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Nearer. Kurzweil, he's known for making some pretty bold predictions.
Bold, sure, but he's got a track record. Like, he called some major tech advancements way before they were even a blip on anyone else's radar.
Right? Adds a bit of weight to his words, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say? But he doesn't just pull these predictions out of thin air. He's got this whole theory, this principle he calls the law of accelerating returns, or LOAR. It's like the engine driving us toward this singularity he talks about.
Exactly. It's key.
Okay, so LOAR, law of accelerating returns. For those of us who aren't, futurists, break it down. What's it all about?
All right, imagine a rocket. It doesn't just, like, instantly hit top speed. It starts slow, builds momentum, then accelerates faster and faster,
Right,
right?
the classic rocket launch.
Kurzweil says technology, especially when we're talking about information tech, it follows a similar trajectory. It's not linear progress. It's progress that builds on itself, so it gets exponentially faster and cheaper as we go.
So not a straight line, more like a curve that gets steeper and steeper as time goes on.
So it's starting to feel a little bit of that roller coaster effect. Can you give us a real-world example of this all-IR thing in action, something we can really wrap our heads around?
Think about your smartphone, like right now.
Yeah,
Way more powerful than those massive computers they had back in the day, and way cheaper.
right, true.
That's LOAR at work. And Kurzweil uses this to show that we could be seeing tech advancements in our lifetime that, honestly, we can barely even imagine right now. Like he predicts that thanks to LOAR, AI will reach human-level intelligence, not in centuries, not in decades, but in years.
We're not just talking about fancier phones here. We're talking about AI that can, what, think like us.
Exactly. That's the prediction.
Okay, that's a big claim. It is, and it all comes down to this idea of exponential growth, which, by the way, it's happened before in human history. Think about the printing press. It didn't just, make books. It totally revolutionized how we share information. It democratized knowledge, and that changed societies from the ground up. And Kurzweil is arguing that AI, it's got the same potential to be a total game changer.
So how do we go from today's AI, which, let's be honest, sometimes can't even understand a simple voice command, to AI that can write a best-selling novel or, compose a symphony?
One of the key ideas Kurzweil lays out is something called the connectionist approach to AI. Basically, we're talking about building AI that learns kind of like we do.
So instead of programming AI with all the answers,
Yeah.
we're teaching it how to think for itself.
Right. You got it. Like, think about how Spotify seems to just get your music taste tricky good sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, it's using a kind of connectionist AI. It analyzes tons and tons of data to recognize patterns and make recommendations. And that's how this type of AI learns, by recognizing patterns in data just like our brains do. Problem is, until recently, we just haven't had the computational power to really make this kind of AI work on a larger scale.
So we finally have computers powerful enough to create AI that can learn and adapt on a whole new level.
Exactly.
That's got to be a game changer.
Oh, yeah. And that's where things get really interesting, because this raw processing power, this is the key to unlocking some of Kurzweil's most mind-blowing predictions.
All right, so we've got OLER pushing things along at warp speed and AI that's learning to think more like us. But how does this actually play out? Paint us a picture. What does this future look like?
Well, this is where Kurzweil takes us from, impressive AI to something truly mind-bending. He's talking about merging our minds with machines.
Merging our minds. Okay, hold on. We're going full sci-fi now. It's kind of brain implants, cybernetic enhancements. What's the vision here?
Think of it more like expanding your mind into the cloud. Like right now, you access information by Googling it, right? But
Mhm.
imagine having that information instantly integrated into your thinking. Like it's just there. Kurzweil talks about nanobots, these tiny robots, smaller than a cell, that act as a bridge between our brains and the power of, well, pretty much all the computing power out there.
So not replacing our brains, but kind of supercharging them, giving them access to like a power boost they could only dream of before.
Exactly. Right now, we're limited by our physical brains, right? They can only hold so much information, processed so fast. Kurzweil is talking about a future where we break free of those limitations. We could have access to a ridiculous amount of knowledge and processing power. Think about the possibilities.
Yeah, it does sound kind of amazing in theory. But I gotta be honest, this whole idea of my brain being hooked up to the cloud, it raises some, let's say, interesting questions. Like, what happens to my sense of self, my identity? If my thoughts are all entangled with this vast network, am I still me?
You're hitting on one of the most fascinating and honestly potentially unsettling parts of Kurzweil's vision. It's this idea of, he calls it U2. Imagine a perfect digital replica of your brain. All your memories, your experiences, your quirks. Is that replica just a copy, or is it another version of you?
It's like that thought experiment, right? If you gradually replace every part of a ship, is it still the same ship? Only now we're talking about our consciousness. Are we still S's if our minds are existing out there in the cloud?
That's $1 million question, right? And Kurzweil, to his credit, he doesn't shy away from it. He actually thinks this technology forces us to really examine what it means to be human. Like, what is consciousness, really? Are we just our memories and experiences, or is there something more, something that can't be replicated in code?
Okay, whoa, those are some seriously deep thoughts. But let's bring it back down to earth for a sec. We've talked about the potential impact on our minds, but what about the more practical everyday stuff? Like, how does this singularity affect our jobs, our health, even our relationships?
Well, Kurzweil argues that the ripple effects of a singularity, they're going to be everywhere.
Okay, so we've covered some seriously mind-bending stuff here. Our minds merging with machines, the nature of consciousness. But let's bring it back down to earth for a bit. How does this singularity, this fusion of humans and AI, how's it going to impact our everyday lives? What's going to change?
Well, Kurzweil argues that the ripple effects from all this, they're going to be felt everywhere, really, every aspect of life.
Give us the highlights. What's it going to look like?
Okay, so take healthcare. Kurzweil, he imagines a world where AI ushers in this new age of like personalized medicine. We're talking AI doctors analyzing your genes, your lifestyle, even your environment, all to create treatments tailored just for you. Imagine that.
Yeah, sign me up. No more one-size-fits-all medicine.
Exactly. And we could be talking about, finally curing diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, heck, maybe even aging itself.
Okay, now that's a future I can get behind. But what about, like, our jobs, the economy? AI this advanced, it's got to have some impact on that side of things, right?
Oh, absolutely. Kurzweil predicts a huge shift in the job market. AI is going to automate a lot of the jobs that humans do now.
That's a little unnerving, to be honest.
Yeah, but before everyone panics, he doesn't see it as all doom and gloom. He thinks it's actually an opportunity for us to move into roles that require things AI, at least for now, isn't so great at: creativity, emotional intelligence, complex problem solving.
So instead of replacing us, AI kind of frees us up to focus on the things that make us human.
Right, but there's a catch. Kurzweil, he doesn't think the singularity is something that just happens to us. He says we have a choice. We need
Yeah.
to be involved, guiding this technology, making sure it aligns with our values.
So we're not just along for the ride. We're in the driver's seat, even if the car is a little more high-tech than we're used to.
Exactly. And that means talking about the ethical stuff, right? How do we make sure AI is used for good? How do we stop bias from creeping into algorithms? How do we handle job displacement, inequality, all that? These are big questions.
Big questions, yeah. But Kurzweil seems to think we can figure it out. He seems optimistic. He does paint a picture of a pretty incredible future, though. A point where humanity could make a huge leap forward.
He does, but he's also clear that the singularity isn't like a done deal. The future's not written yet. What we do now, the conversations we have, they matter. They're going to shape the future one way or another.
So for our listeners, they're hearing all this, maybe feeling a little overwhelmed. What's the takeaway? What do we do? How do we prepare for this future that seems to be, speeding towards us?
Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged. Don't shy away from the big, complicated questions. Read, listen, learn, and talk to each other. The more we understand this stuff, the better equipped we'll be to handle whatever's coming next.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So there you have it, deep divers. We've taken a deep dive into Kurzweil's vision of the future, a future where humanity and tech, they're becoming more and more intertwined. It's exciting, it's challenging, and it's coming whether we're ready or not. What role will you play in shaping the singularity? That's something to think about as you keep exploring, keep questioning, and of course keep diving